Matthew, how do honey badgers score on your scale of intelligence?
I actually don't know of many tests on honey badgers, so I haven't read many papers with honey badgers. It sounds from what Marek's saying like they do pretty well. They might even
Yeah, okay.
pass everything, maybe even be able to design the competition better than I have. Yeah, I mean, sounds like they'd be pretty good.
Okay. Matthew, you following this general AI scene, what is in your opinion today the stage of general AI? Where are we? What do you think we have achieved so far? And what do you think are the challenges now?
We've achieved recently. There's been a lot of really great achievements in AI in what I guess we would call narrow instances, but I'm not sure they were considered narrow before they were solved. So things
Okay.
like creating the best Go player in the world. That sounded like a very tricky problem before it was solved, and now that it's solved, it sounds like a slightly easier problem that we tend to want to call narrow. But as the competition we're designing is trying to point out, there's still like fairly fundamental aspects of intelligence that just aren't solved by these algorithms. So the type of algorithms that are used in AlphaZero, we don't expect them to do like just 100% our competition, because that involves learning about your environment and then transferring that learning to situations you've never seen before and solving problems.
Yes.
And that's the kind of area where, like, as far as I can tell, we need like very big leaps forward in progress before we can move towards AGI.
Okay. What do you think? We have this question from Anonymous, actually. Marek, it's aimed for you, but I'd like to, if Matthew can have his take. What do you see good AI? Do you think they are ahead of everybody else in this field, in general AI? And when do you think good AI or anybody else will reach the stage of the singularity?
I'll let Marek answer for good AI specifically. In terms of when anyone will reach it, I think that's something that's almost impossible to put a number on. There's been some surveys done at like artificial intelligence conferences where people have asked this question to many of the top researchers in the field.
Yeah.
And what you find out is just huge variance in the numbers. People generally have been giving around 50 years, and that seems to be roughly independent of when you ask the question.
Yes.
So it was 50 years 10 years ago, and then 5 years ago it was also 50 years, and nowadays it's still roughly 50 years, the median of all the answers. But there's a huge variance. And
Yes.
I think that's because no one really knows. And it's a very, very hard question to actually put a strong, definitive answer on.
Okay. Marek, Ray Kurzweil is one of they say most accurate long-term predictor of technology. Maybe you know some inventions he did. For example, fax machine. He invented fax machine. He invented flatbed scanner. He invented voice recognition. He used to be at some point, I think, director of product at Google. And every year he makes this update of his predictions of when is singularity coming, which means when machines will reach the level of intelligence of humans. His current prediction is 2029. Marek, do you agree with that? And where do you see good AI on the path towards that?
I agree with Matthew. It's really hard to predict, and so I cannot say if this date is possible or not. But for me, another thing is important is if you are right about the prediction, like what does it mean, or like what does it mean for you, and when you are wrong with this prediction, what does it mean for you? So for me, it's completely okay if I will be missing this deadline for years or decades, but once you have it, then you really have it. So
Yes.
That's why it's important. And in order to kind of like benchmark our progress on AGI, again, it's super hard to say. I think we have some very good theory in good AI and very good understanding of some things,
Okay.
and how to do them and the roadmap. But would I also know that many times, and you probably, like everyone knows this, that sometimes some things look very easy to solve,
Yeah.
only because you don't know all the details of the problem. And so if I give you any prediction now, it can be really based only of me not seeing some problems, in detail yet. So to be honest, I don't really care, about the prediction. What I care about is to live long enough to get there, to survive, and just increase the chance that one day we will have it.
Okay. Matthew, this is a question here about AI today is mostly based on supervised learning, and most common applications is automating routines. what's the future of unsupervised learning, according to you? What do you think?
Yeah, so I think most of the AI I interact with personally in research is not supervised learning. I do a lot with reinforcement learning, which you could say the reinforcement signal is a supervision signal, and unsupervised learning. I think one of the really key areas at the moment is curiosity-based learning, where the idea is you're going to train an agent that's interacting with an environment. I'm mostly interested in any AI that is for an agent that has sensors that then is doing some actions in an environment. And for that, what you're doing is you're not just trying to get it to learn to get the highest reward in its environment or to categorize some signal based on things you already know. You're just trying to get it to have as many new experiences as possible. This is why it's called curiosity. It's curious to see as many new things as it can.
Yes.
And that turns out to be a really, really interesting learning technique. Because if you don't go and explore your environment, you're not going to see new things. So it starts, first of all, learning how to explore its environment. And in order to explore your environment, you need to understand roughly how your environment works. You have to start modeling it. You have to learn that you can move from, say, one room to another, or move things to look at what's behind them.
Yeah.
So I think anything based on curiosity or intrinsic motivation is really exciting for unsupervised learning.
Mm-hmm. Marek, what do you see as the dangers of AI? And you might know that Elon Musk, at some point, he was getting a bit nervous about AI, and he initiated a organization called OpenAI. And in February this year, he left it for two reasons. One, he thinks he's too busy, and second, the kind of underlying, maybe more important, is that he thinks the direction which they decided to go is not the correct one. Do you agree with this, Marek? And what do you think are the dangers of AI, and which topics should OpenAI deal with?
So, to be honest, I don't know the exact reasons why they split. So I really can't comment about that. And if I should answer about safety concerns of AI or AGI, so obviously there are some short-term things that we read in paper, like transparency, in the AI, or how to make AI so it's unbiased and all these things. So that's one thing. But if you look on the more long term, another thing is how to make sure that the general AI will be aligned with our values, and how to make sure that this happens, that the AI is not maximizing some other goal. That's one thing. Another is who will have this general AI, because if you think about this, it will be the strongest technology in the ever. So there's another thing, that if the people or the humanity will benefit from this, or only some small group, and then there is even the risk on when developing general AI, when the race, because it's still kind of race, when it will be nearing the end, the sides that will be or the parties racing this thing may be reducing their safety concerns, because they would want to be the first one, and it's some kind of if you are in a war, then and the risk of losing the war is more important than losing some other things, then you really will be pushing forward, and you can actually make some mistakes that will do harm to everyone. So
we had this before. We had maybe two big races. One is the race for the atomic bomb, and the second race was maybe for the moon. Do you consider we made any mistakes done which we should be learning from?
Yeah. I think there are also some differences in these races, that the nuclear bomb is still not something that can recursively self-improve. It's not so independent from people and so on. So there are these huge differences, but something can be learned. And to be honest, I see many scenarios that this thing could go. I'm not sure which one is the most likely.
Okay. Matthew, what is your take on AI race? Do you find it super dangerous, or do you think it's going to be manageable by mankind?
I think there is a real danger, because if the singularity is near, and you are at a point where we don't just have AGI or human-level AI, but we have AI that is IQ and intelligence far superior to us, then whoever controls it, if they do actually manage to maintain control of it, is going to be have huge advantage over everyone else in the world. So it's a winner-takes-all situation. Whoever gets there first is going to win. That's only the case, though, if when it does exist, they still have control over it and can use it to their benefit, which is debatable whether that's possible. And it's also only the case if you think that this is something that is near term, a worry people are actually approaching. And my personal view is that there's a lot of steps on the way before we'll get there, and we're going to be a lot more informed about this debate in the future than we are now.
So you are at Imperial College. Do you find, is there any race on the academic level in AI?
I mean, everyone's racing to get their research papers published and get some recognition. But I don't think people are specifically, at least the ones that I'm interacting with, really interested in creating something towards a singularity. They're just interested in how do we solve whatever problem it is that interests them. For me, in the lab I'm in, it's people are interested in cognition and human-like cognition and how we can build things that understand the world in the same way we understand the world. But you can do that without going anywhere near superintelligence style singularity worries.
Yes. So, Mark, in the meantime, AGI is super expensive to develop. It's not cheap. And we have seen companies like DeepMind, you might know it was bought 2.5 years ago for $500 million by Google. So they have the funds to do it. How are you going about it? When you're the sole owner of the company, you have to finance the whole thing. How do you choose your priorities? And how do you see the business model of owning an AGI company?
So I started with like my own funding, which wasn't small, but of course it's nothing comparable to DeepMind or Google.
Yes.
And so basically my strategy need to be slightly different in focusing on as few directions as possible. Just like really making sure that this is the thing, and then basically betting on the direction and putting almost everything in that basket. And so that's the difference. And why I'm funding this myself is that it was just the quickest way for me. That I didn't need to like ask some people for money or something like this.
Okay.
And also gives me some kind of freedom, to do whatever I want.
The reason why I'm asking is because last week there was an announcement that DeepMind is now launching the first commercial product. And it seems like DeepMind is trying to apply general AI into certain industries. They're focusing on health, especially on eye care. And they developed this analytics diagnosis system with Moorfields Eye Hospital, and they're analyzing based on the visual analysis of the eye, what kind of diagnosis you can have, what's wrong with your eye, and apparently they are better than any doctors they tested. You doing something similar, but not on eyes, on health. You built, was it last year, kind of like a spin-off, which is a consultancy, where you offer to big companies your engine to be applied on certain areas. Why did you do it, and did it do something interesting in the meantime?
Yeah. So about 2 years ago, we started Good AI Applied, which is different from Good AI Research. And the research is really just developing AGI, and Applied is using, let's say, state-of-the-art machine learning, deep learning to solve like very specific business problems.
Yes.
And I think something similar is doing also DeepMind with this health thing, that using state-of-the-art deep learning to solve current problems that can be solved actually with current state-of-the-art. And we are not using like the general AI part, for these things, because it's just research. It's not production ready. Those things are mostly some kind of proof of concept on some toy problems and so on, and they just wouldn't stand in competition with deep learning today. Hopefully it will change later, but not now. And the business model for general AI, so for now we are doing this applied thing also as some kind of get experience in doing the AI business, before we actually have AGI. That's one thing.
Yes.
Another is that it can provide some additional funding for the Good AI research thing. And but long-term plan here is that once we'll have general AI, which will be something that can learn like people, and you can give it some task, it will find ways how to solve the task and so on. So if you think about this thing would automate intelligence, and basically right now, when you are doing business or any project, you need people to do that project, and basically you are limited by their time, by their cognitive skills, by the price of people, and so on. And if you imagine that you would have general AI that can actually improve itself recursively to do all these tasks, then the business model for good AI or general AI is actually like to go everywhere, to all business industries, to all verticals, and just make them better. More efficient, faster, invent better things, or even improve the speed of improvements, and so on. So basically, it's about making everything better.
Matthew, do you think that what Elon Musk says, that the only way for us to survive singularity is we're gonna become cyborgs, and we're gonna have to plug in to improve our capacity to learn and get better by plugging into machines? Do you believe that?
I think that's going to be a natural process. If you buy this vision that AI progress is going to be somewhat gradual, then it's going to become more and more incorporated in our lives. Like already, we're using a phone to check the questions for this talk. It's something that just comes naturally to be part of how we exist nowadays, and that's just going to be more and more the case. So I think that's just the natural path we're on. It doesn't mean sort of the big sort of cyborg word sort of conjures up this image that suddenly you're going to take something, just plug it into your brain. I think it's just going to become a natural progression where that just is a normal state of being by a very slow process of just getting more and more involved in technology and it becoming more a part of our lives.
So you working at the Center for the Future of Intelligence, what is the big picture of where do you see the future of intelligence?
Well, so the point of the center is to look at all the issues around the future of intelligence and where AI is heading, and make sure that we manage it in the correct way for humankind to prosper the most out of the advances we're going to get. So to worry about the kind of issues, the near-term issues that are coming up in terms of potential for automating too many jobs and changes in the economy this is going to cause and those kind of things. But also to look at the bigger picture questions and when would we be able to get general intelligence and what does it mean and how do we move towards more human-like intelligence?
Yes.
I mean, there's just a ton of really, really interesting questions there, and they're all relevant to the future of intelligence.
And so far from the Animal AI Olympics, what is the big insights you got so far?
Well, at the moment, we've still been developing, and we're actually releasing the environment that people can start playing with for the competition on Tuesday.
Yes.
That's when people are going to start, the public are going to first have access to this, and they can start playing around and training algorithms on it. And so I don't expect we're going to get big insights until that happens, but then I'm hoping we'll get a lot of good feedback from the community. We're doing a sort of pre-release on Tuesday, and then in 2 months' time, we're actually putting the competition live. So we want to... Yeah, we're hoping that people will give us feedback and say, well, this is not what I think intelligence is. You need to include these kind of things or that kind of thing.
Interesting. Marek, is Good AI part of it?
Yes, we are co-organizing the challenge, yes. Helping here or there, but it's mostly Matthew's work.
Okay, nice. Now let's go and spend 5 minutes on some quick questions, quick answers. Marek, the big questions from Katie is, do you consider OpenAI as a competitor or collaborator?
I think as a competitor.
Competitor. Sure, yes.
I'm actually directly collaborating with OpenAI on an independent project of this, and they've been very good. And they've got a lot of very good people working on AI safety. The project is about AI safety.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, they are literally a collaborator for me. And I think they've had a bit of a struggle, like presenting AI safety to the world. It's not something that people are ready to have the full discussion on, and it's not very. It doesn't come out as interesting a discussion potentially as you may want to when you're looking at near-term stuff. But
yes.
Yeah, for me, they've been doing some very interesting and good stuff on that.
Yes, we had the CTO speaking at a conference early in February, and it's super insightful, and it's also super hard because since they are concerned with safety, and in most cases with AI, you don't see the problems coming until it might be too late. So it's not really easy to do this. Matthew, what do you see as the biggest danger of the open AI safety or AI safety?
AI safety. I think the biggest danger is just ignoring it. I think as humans, we're very good at solving problems, and when we can identify the problems, if we identify them far enough in advance, then we can find solutions to them. I think as David Deutsch said something like, problems are inevitable, but all problems are solvable. As long as we take this outlook where, yeah, we're going to get problems with AI, with developments in AI, but as long as there's always people working on them and we're developing enough resources, I think we should be fine.
Okay. Marek, VK is asking, isn't artificial intelligence, artificial general AI, just a collection of many specific narrow AI applications? Shouldn't we just focus on more narrow applications then? What are your thoughts?
So I actually think no, and like in principle, the general AI could be something that would generate these very specific narrow AIs to solve the tasks and have them as some kind of modules and then know at which problem use which individual narrow AI. But for me, general AI is something that can actually invent these narrow AIs or train them and so on, because we want to automate the intelligence. And basically, I want to get the people out of the loop of training the AI. You know, it should be AI that will be training the AIs and so on. So doing many narrow AIs would actually not solve the thing.
Okay. Matthew, there's a question here from David Naylor. Do you think regulation around AI to address ethics will hold the UK and Europe back compared to China and the US?
That's a tough question. The EU have been doing quite a lot of work on AI ethics and convening a lot of, they have a lot of committees working on this and putting out white papers and all this stuff. And at the moment, we haven't seen strong uptake by industry on the ethical regulations, except for stuff like GDPR, obviously.
Yes.
I think the EU, even without all this work, is going to be behind places like China in this regard. I don't know if it's going to hold them back or not, because it depends what your end goal is. If your end goal is to have AI systems that conform to how your society thinks AI systems could conform to, then with both places are going to get that. Whether that means you're held back towards AGI or not, I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. Marek, a question from Mark Knight. How do we humans make sure we are not outcompeted by the AI? Isn't the objective the opposite?
Yeah, I think actually like merging with the AI, you know, this cyborg idea, that's what I think we should aim for. Basically use the AI only as augmentation of our natural intelligence. So at a certain point, of course, the distinction between these two will disappear. And at some point, maybe you will not even know where your memories or your thoughts, where they're actually happening. You know, if it is inside the biological brain or some kind of artificial brain somewhere. And so I think if everything goes right, you know, and if we do the AI control properly, then merging with AI, like people, humans and AI, that's the next step.
Okay. Matthew, how do you define consciousness? Do you really think it can be downloaded somewhere at some point?
How do you define consciousness?
Yes.
There's, well, no quick way to answer that question. I like Nagel's definition that you are conscious if there is something it is like to be you. Any system is conscious when there is something it is like to be that system. That's not 100% satisfying. I don't think there exists a satisfying definition of consciousness out there at the moment.
Yes.
Will we have conscious AI at some point? Yeah, I think of course we will. I think as human beings, we evolved into creatures that are conscious just by getting really good at interacting with our environment, being able to solve problems, understand our world, model our world, and re-represent that world to ourselves. We can build AI systems that can do that. Not now, but in the future.
Yes.
And then we will have no reason to think they're not conscious.
You know, in the 50s, there was this big wave and fashion wave of people who, after they died, they paid lots of money to have themselves cryogenically frozen. And I'm not sure if this is going to work. Do you think at some point we'll be able to, after you die or before you die, you just download your consciousness or all your experiences, your memories, and just keep living forever?
That depends quite a lot on the amount of definition you need in a brain to download the information you need and whether we'll ever have the technology to do that feasibly.
Okay.
Because if, for example, you just need the pattern of neurons and how they connect to each other, that's clearly not feasible now, but maybe in the future it is. But if maybe pre-neuronal activations in the brain are important and like how the electricity is transferring, even not including spiking times, then like it's even way further in the future that we could ever potentially feasibly get that kind of level of information downloaded.
Okay. Marek, last question here is, are you concerned about the future of AI as Elon Musk is? Before you answer, I want to give the context a little bit. Elon Musk, at some point, when he sold his stake in PayPal, they sold to eBay. He earned, I think, 180 million, and he had a choice to invest it in something. And he chose two things. One is the sustainability of the Earth, and that's why he built Tesla and solar panels with Solar City, and they merged now. And the second thing is, just in case the humanity will mess up and there'll be an asteroid, smashing into Earth, and we're gonna die. Let's have a plan B, and let's make sure we can be on a different planet. Those were his choices. You made a different choice because what you chose to focus on is general AI, which means he is building a rocket which brings us to Mars, and you building something which can build you anything else. In long term, this can be a big difference. Are you concerned? Because the concern of OpenAI and Elon Musk is also something which can kill humanity. Your vision is big, but it can also backfire. How concerned are you about AI going wrong?
On one side, quite a lot, but on the other side, I'm optimist. So I believe, like that in the end, everything will go well. But in order for it to go well, there has to be a lot of things done properly. So I'm concerned, but I'm also optimist.
Okay. Messi, what is your take on how concerned are you about the future of humanity due to AI advancements?
I think there are a lot of sort of existential risks for humanity that trump AI as a danger. So global warming, for example, political crises, geopolitical stability, that kind of thing, viruses. I think the real goal, is similar to Marek said earlier, is that we survive as a human race long enough to build AI that can continue to be conscious and explore the world like we can and enjoy existence.
Okay, and please, on this note, join me in thanking our guests, Marek Rosa from Good AI and Matthew Crosby from Imperial College.